A small boy stands alone in the middle of a frozen forest. Beside him, his mother. Around him, his younger brothers and sisters. Behind them, nothing. No tribe, no protectors, no home. Everyone who was supposed to stand by this family has already turned and walked away, leaving them to survive or die on their own in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. That boy's name was Temujin, and in the year 1206, that same abandoned child would stand before every tribe of the Mongolian steppe and be declared ruler of a nation that had never existed before, a nation that would go on to become the largest connected land empire the world has ever known, stretching one day from the Pacific coast of China to the outskirts of Eastern Europe, larger than Russia is today, larger than the empire of Alexander the Great, larger than Rome at its absolute height. This is the complete story of how a boy with nothing became the man the entire world learned to fear. This is the story of Genghis Khan. Before we go any further, if stories of impossible rises and total conquest are what you come to this channel for, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is one of the most complete, most detailed tellings of Genghis Khan's life you will find anywhere, and we are not skipping a single part of it. Let's get into it. To understand how Temujin became Genghis Khan, you first have to understand the world he was born into, a world where there was no Mongolia, no unified nation, nothing resembling a single country at all. Instead, the vast Mongolian steppe was home to dozens of competing nomadic tribes and clans. The Merkits, the Tatars, the Karaits, the Naimans, and Temujin's own people, the Borjigin, locked in an endless, generational cycle of raids, kidnappings, and blood feuds. Temujin was born into this world around the year 1162, the son of a minor tribal chief named Yasujii. According to legend, the infant was born clutching a blood clot tightly in his tiny fist, an omen the elders interpreted as a sign of either extraordinary greatness or extraordinary bloodshed to come. Yasujii named his newborn son Temujin, meaning of iron, after a rival warrior chief he had just defeated in battle. When Temujin was around 9, Yasujii took him on a journey to arrange his future marriage to a girl named Borte from the Anjarat tribe. Temujin was left behind to live with her family, while Yasujii began the journey home alone. Along the way, he stopped to share a meal with a group of traveling Tatars, old enemies who recognized him and poisoned his food. He made it home before the poison finished its work, but within days, he was dead. Temujin rushed home, hoping to claim his father's position. But nobody follows a 9-year-old boy into battle. The moment Yasujii died, his authority died with him. The clan that Yasujii had led simply packed up and left. Overnight, Temujin's family, his mother Holon, his brothers, and his sisters, were abandoned on the open grassland, with nothing left at all. This is where one of the most powerful figures in the entire story steps in. His mother, Holon. She single-handedly held the family together, foraging for wild onions, roots, and berries, fishing rivers, hunting marmots, anything to keep 5 children alive through Mongolia's brutal winters. Most families in this situation simply disappeared from history. Holon's determination is the reason Temujin's story didn't end here. But it was during these hardest years that Temujin first showed the world the kind of man he was becoming. His half-brother Begtur began asserting dominance over the family, stealing food the younger boys had hunted. Temujin's response was swift and brutal. Along with his brother Kasar, he ambushed and killed Begtur. Holon was reportedly horrified, comparing her sons to wild animals. But for Temujin, the lesson was permanent. Weakness could not be tolerated, not even from family. As Temujin grew, the rival Tud clan captured him, locking a wooden collar called a kang around his neck and wrists, a device designed for maximum humiliation. He was paraded between camps as a warning to others. But Temujin refused to accept that as permanent. During a tribal festival, he knocked a guard unconscious using his own collar, then hid submerged in a nearby river, breathing through a hollow reed until his pursuers gave up. A man named Sorkin Shira, who belonged to the very clan holding him captive but had shown him small kindnesses, hid the escaped Temujin rather than turning him in, a relationship that would matter again later, when Sorkinshira's own children became some of Temujin's most trusted followers. Word of his escape spread, and his reputation grew. Eventually, Temujin returned to claim Borte as his wife, giving him, for the first time since his father's death, real stability. A note on his earliest companions. As Temujin's reputation grew, he began attracting a small circle of extraordinarily loyal companions, men history would remember as his four dogs and four steeds. Boworshu joined him after helping track down horse thieves, long before Temujin held any real power. Jelm saved his life during an early battle by sucking poison from an arrow wound in his neck, then risked further danger sneaking into an enemy camp to steal milk to help him recover. Jeeb, a former enemy who had actually shot Temujin's own horse in battle, was captured and, when asked directly, admitted it rather than lying to save himself. And Temujin, impressed by his honesty, spared him and brought him into his inner circle, where he became one of the most brilliant cavalry commanders in Mongol history. This willingness to forgive and promote based on demonstrated courage and honesty, rather than birthright, became one of the most distinctive features of Temujin's entire approach to building power, and one of the biggest reasons warriors from rival clans kept abandoning their own chiefs to join him instead. The Merkit tribe, old enemies of Temujin's family, launched a revenge raid on his camp and kidnapped Borte. Temujin called in every favor he could, turning to Togrul, Khan of the Karate tribe and his father's old blood brother, and to Jamuka, his own childhood blood brother through the sacred Anda ritual. Both answered his call. The combined force struck the Merkit camp and rescued Borte, Temujin's first genuine political and military victory, built on alliances rather than personal strength alone. But the rescue came with a complication this story won't shy away from. Borte returned pregnant, and it was never entirely clear whether her son, Joki, was Temujin's biological child or had been conceived during her captivity. Temujin never publicly disowned Joki, raising him as his own, but the ambiguity became a quiet, persistent tension that would resurface years later during his succession planning. On Genghis Khan's family and governance, Borte remained his principal wife and the mother of his four recognized sons for his entire life. And despite Genghis Khan taking numerous additional wives over the following decades, common practice for cementing alliances, Borte retained uniquely elevated status and influence, and her sons alone were considered legitimate heirs. His daughters, often overlooked in popular retellings, played a genuinely crucial role too. Following a strategy of political marriage mirroring his own father's, Genghis Khan married several daughters to rulers of allied and tributary states, and in a number of documented cases, these daughters took on direct governing authority themselves, administering territories loyal to the Mongol center, particularly across Central Asia, where several ruled as ongoing regional administrators in their own right. Of every relationship in Temujin's life, none carries more tragedy than his bond with Jamuka. The two had sworn the Anda ritual, and for years ruled jointly as close allies. But their visions diverged. Jamuka favored the traditional aristocratic order. Temujin favored rewarding ability and loyalty over birthright. Jamuka's own followers, dissatisfied, increasingly defected to Temujin. Open war followed, and it's worth being honest that Temujin did not win every battle. At the Battle of Dalanbal's Hut, Jamuka's forces actually defeated him, forcing a retreat. Even the man who would conquer the largest empire in history knew real defeat. He rebuilt, kept attracting defectors, and eventually Jamuka's own remaining followers betrayed him and handed him over. Temujin reportedly wept at the sight of his old friend, offering reconciliation. Jamuka refused, insisting two sons could not share one sky, and requested a bloodless death in keeping with tradition. Temujin granted it. With every major tribe eventually subdued, Temujin accomplished something unprecedented, uniting the entire Mongolian steppe under one rule. In 1206, at the Great Kurultai Assembly, he was given the title Genghis Khan, universal ruler. He was approximately 44. He reorganized his military entirely around a decimal system. Units of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, deliberately mixing warriors from different tribes to break apart old clan loyalty in favor of loyalty to the unit and to himself. He established the Yasa, a formal legal code applying equally across every tribe, explicitly protecting religious freedom for Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, and traditional shamanists alike. On Mongol military tactics, every Mongol warrior grew up on horseback from early childhood, trained in archery as a basic survival skill. Their primary weapon, the composite recurve bow, could strike targets at over 200 meters, even from a full gallop. The decimal unit system allowed extraordinarily precise coordination using signal flags, smoke, and whistling arrows. One of the most feared tactics was the feigned retreat, a staged, controlled withdrawal luring overconfident enemies into abandoning their formations before the retreating Mongols wheeled around in perfect coordination and counterattacked with concealed reserves. Genghis Khan also readily adopted foreign expertise, Chinese siege engineers, Persian and Muslim administrators, rather than relying solely on traditional steppe warfare. Genghis Khan's forces subdued western Xia between 1209 and 1210, his first conquest beyond the steppe. He then turned to the Jin dynasty in northern China, one of the wealthiest, most fortified civilizations on Earth. Beginning in 1211, Mongol forces besieged city after city, adapting rapidly to siege warfare with Chinese engineering support. The Siege of Zhongdu, the Jin capital, Zhongdu, near modern Beijing, was one of the most heavily fortified cities in the world. Rather than a costly direct assault, Mongol forces settled into a prolonged siege beginning in 1213, cutting off supplies and starving the population. Conditions grew so desperate that some accounts report cannibalism before the city's surrender in 1215. Its fall sent shockwaves through the wider Jin territory and beyond. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent a peaceful trade caravan toward the Khwarezmian Empire. The governor of Ochre, suspecting espionage, massacred the caravan. When Genghis Khan's envoys demanded justice, the Khwarezmian Shah executed them too, the single worst diplomatic mistake in that empire's history. What followed was one of the most devastating campaigns in recorded history. City after city fell: Ochre, Bokhara, Samarkand, Urgench, Merv, Nishapur. Cities that surrendered were often spared. Cities that resisted faced catastrophic consequences, deliberately designed to spread fear ahead of the advancing army. Bokhara and Samarkand in detail. When Bokhara fell in early 1220, Genghis Khan reportedly rode into the city's central mosque on horseback and declared himself the punishment of God, deliberate psychological warfare. Samarkand, despite a garrison that vastly outnumbered the besieging Mongols on paper, surrendered after only a brief siege, its defenders demoralized by the fate of the cities before it. Merv and Nishapur suffered perhaps the campaign's most catastrophic destruction, Nishapur especially, after the death of Genghis Khan's son-in-law during the initial assault provoked an even harsher retaliation. This is the chapter that explains why most feared ruler attached itself so permanently to his name. But the full picture is more complicated. Even while devastating resistant cities, Genghis Khan was simultaneously building the foundations of the Silk Road's safest era yet, establishing the Yam messenger relay system, and enforcing genuine religious tolerance under the Yasa. Both realities were true at once. By the mid-1220s, Genghis Khan had spent nearly 2 decades almost continuously at war. In 1227, while campaigning against a rebelling Western Xia, the very first kingdom he had conquered, he died. The exact cause remains disputed: a fall from his horse, illness, or, in less credited legends, assassination. According to legend, his funeral escort killed anyone they encountered along the route home to keep his burial location secret, and a river was allegedly diverted over his grave. To this day, despite modern satellite searches, his tomb has never been found. Before his death, he divided his empire among his 4 sons with Borte, Joki, Chagatai, Ogdi, and Talyui, with Ogdi formally confirmed as the next great Khan. On religious belief and Ogdi's expansion, Genghis Khan followed the traditional Mongol belief in Tungri, the eternal blue sky, and increasingly came to believe his conquests were divinely sanctioned, a belief he used deliberately as a tool of propaganda toward unconquered territories, even while genuinely tolerating the different faiths of his conquered subjects. His death didn't slow the empire. Ogdi completed the conquest of the Jin dynasty by 1234, then launched a westward campaign under Bada Khan and the brilliant general Subutai, annihilating European coalition forces at Legnica and Mohi and advancing within striking distance of Vienna itself, sending panic through royal courts across Western Europe. Only Ogdi's own sudden death in 1241, recalling princes home for the succession Kurultai, halted the advance, likely sparing Western Europe an invasion its fragmented kingdoms would have struggled to repel. At its absolute peak, the empire would cover nearly 24 million square kilometers, a quarter of the entire planet's land area, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. An orphan who was cast out by his own tribe went on to build the largest empire the world has ever known. And to this day, nobody knows exactly where he is buried. If this complete telling of Genghis Khan's life kept you watching until the very end, make sure you're subscribed, because this story doesn't actually end here. His grandsons expanded the empire even further than he ever did himself, and centuries later, a descendant of his own bloodline would go on to found an entirely different empire, thousands of miles away, in India, the Mughals. If you want to see how the blood of Genghis Khan eventually built an entirely new empire on the other side of Asia, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because that video is coming next.